Hi, everyone. So this is us just jumping in. We've just recorded this episode. Say hi, Matthew.
Hello.
So we've just recorded, but it was a bit of a tangent-y episode, but so we kind of have to go back and do the intro because we didn't really know what we were going to talk about, but we basically covered, there's the docs segment of this episode.
Documentaries.
Yeah. And then
it sounds like you're saying ducks.
Sorry. Then we get into some kind of heavy stuff. We talk about a bit of my story and my background and basically some of the death that we've experienced.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more about kind of us and I guess some of the common themes that are coming up for us, and a lot of it has stemmed from deaths we've experienced kind of in the last decade.
Well, the interesting bit is how we process that differently now to when it happened and how it impacts how we act.
Yeah, exactly.
In our 30s.
Yeah, so I think you'll learn a bit more about us, and I mean, if you've experienced I think this starts to come up now that you're in your 30s. If you're lucky, it doesn't yet, but yeah, you can listen to us kind of go on tangents about it. All right, enjoy the episode. Matthew?
Carly?
How are you today?
That sounded aggressive. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. The weather's not that good, but you wouldn't tell based on your outfit.
Well, I wore this when it was a nice hot sunny day, and I don't like to put stuff in the laundry until it's been dirtied properly. It just feels like a waste, so I'm wearing it for a second time.
How are you going to fully dirty it?
By wearing it for a second time.
Okay. You looked really good this weekend.
I don't quite know how to take that. You don't say that very often.
I know. I was looking at you a few times and I was like, okay.
Wow.
I think it also probably because it was fresh in my mind because I had just edited our How We Met episode. And so if you watch the videos on YouTube, I added a bunch of clips. And so I had one clip that was 3 seconds long of the night we met.
Yeah.
You from the back. And I think it's just fresh in my mind how
chunky I was.
No, you weren't chunky, but
I was a bit chunk.
I wouldn't say you were chunky. You just weren't muscular and toned, and it's not like you were well hydrated and your skin was showing that. So you were a smoker. Anyway, we don't have to get...
It's my skincare regime.
We don't have to get into all that, but you can go listen to that episode if you want to hear all about all the things that I had icks about. But that was just fresh in my mind. And so, yeah, seeing you in London, I'm just like, wow, I have transformed this man into a muscular, well-dressed,
I think
skincare regime, sunscreen wearing dude.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite lines from the weekend was when you said, wow, women are so smart. I was like, what do you mean? And then you went off to list all the women you know who've transformed their partners. I know. You being one of them.
We have a bit of a hater on our Instagram. He clearly likes you, and maybe that's why he's listening / following along for your take, but he does not want my take.
Really? Well, it's usually your take that gets most airtime.
Exactly, and so that's why he's requested that I do less of my take and more of your take.
Okay.
But he's not going to like what I have to say here. But yeah, I take a lot of credit for how you look right now.
That's not going to go down well. But you do. But you always look good, so you just don't even hear those compliments. I feel awkward when you say it.
No, it's not. It's more the transformation for you. You just look like a tall, muscular, tanned. You're not burning yourself to shit in the sun because you wear sunscreen now. So you have this nice even tan. You're hydrated. You don't smoke. And you just look great sometimes.
Maybe I just grew up as well. Maybe I would have done that naturally without your help.
Between 30 and 35, you think
maybe
there was some growth spurt in there where you magically grew muscles?
Well, I'm the same height, aren't I?
Yeah, I know, but it's more the muscles and the toned and the nicer skin and something.
All right.
The fashion is huge.
The fashion you can take the credit for. You can take the credit for probably 70%.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously you had to do it, but I think, and so this kind of leads me to, we've been watching this. Well, we finished it now, but we watched this really, really good doc called Perfect Wife.
Oh, yeah, that was messed up.
It was so good. And I don't want to really give it too much of it away because it's really, really good. One of the better ones I've seen in a while. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It was really good. But so skip ahead if you don't want a bit of a spoiler, because what I'm about to say kind of does spoiler a little bit, but it has Gone Girl vibes to it. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't rule that out for myself because I have done so much work on taking you from, what you were at 29 to what you are now.
Yeah. Go on. I don't know where this is going.
Well, I could see if you somehow like fucked me over, cheated on me with some 20-year-old in 10 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing's off the table for me. Like,
what does she do in Gone Girl? Remind me.
She basically, her husband does like cheats on her with some 20-year-old. Yeah. And she like fakes her own death and frames him, kind of thing, and then goes on the run and just has the time of her life, living in motels, eating chocolate, not trying to be skinny anymore. And yeah, I wouldn't rule that out for me. But obviously, now that I've said that on the podcast, I'll have to think of something obviously slightly different. But
you'd have to do a follow-up. That would be an interesting episode.
What do you mean?
Planning. If you were planning your Gone Girl psycho day.
Well, I probably wouldn't make a podcast about it is the point. But
well, yeah.
Anyway, I could see myself going that route, but that's not really what happens in this doc. It's not a full Gone Girl, it's more like mental illness, but anyway. So spoilers over.
Well, what I wanted to bring up on couples therapy this week is can you please now tell me, how is it you find it impossible to take off your leggings when you go to the gym without the socks staying inside them? Because when I probably do more of the laundry, that's one of the cards I own, and I'm forever either taking the t-shirt out from the jumper that you took off together, or turning the socks inside the right way around from being inside the leggings.
Well, from my perspective, that doesn't bother me when I do the laundry because, like, you just wash it all and then you just take the socks out.
You can't put it all in together, though.
Yeah.
You have to separate it, otherwise it won't wash properly.
Is that true?
Logic would say so, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a habit I can't really shake.
Because I've asked you 4 times now if you could please just take the jumper off first, then take the t-shirt off.
That's like a lot of extra time.
It's not.
No, you're right. I should listen. I just always forget. Like, you've asked me to shut the closet doors when I'm finished.
Oh, I'm glad you remember that one
and
too.
I do make an effort there. Sometimes I'm about to leave the room and I'm like, oh, and I go back and shut them.
Maybe 1 in 25 times.
No, that's so not true.
So if I go upstairs, so you just got ready. If I go upstairs now, will the wardrobe doors be open?
I don't think so. But
I feel like checking.
The other thing, it's not worth all the hassle to get out of the chair right now. But the other thing is, when I take my clothes off, I forget to do that. That one hasn't really, for some reason, it's hard to enter my brain.
I'm gonna use that excuse. Next time you ask me to do something, I'm just going to say I forget. It's hard to enter my brain. See how that flies.
I think the things you ask me are very specific and
very
dumb.
easy to fix.
So I don't even know if I want to give this airtime, but we had a booking. We had a bunch of bookings this weekend in our house, Airbnb bookings, because through the summer, pretty much every single weekend our house is booked out and we go on caravan adventures. And I had this woman who messaged me a couple weeks ago and basically wanted to rent out our house for a night. And she had all these intense cleaning requests, like basically, can I deep clean? She said her daughter's allergic to dogs. And I'm like, well, dogs live here, but they are hypoallergenic, but I can like vacuum the bedding and vacuum the couches and I can do that and I can mop the floors, but you'll obviously just have to accept that like we have curtains that I'm not going to wash. And like I was very realistic with her, but I also said, sure, I'll do that.
You still went over and above a normal clean.
Oh, way, double the time. But no, but you're jumping ahead because then she was like, oh, I just went to book and I realized there's a cleaning fee. Obviously, this woman's never used Airbnb in her life because she's like, if I clean the house after or keep it clean, do we get the cleaning fee back? And I was like, no, that's not how it works. Like you pay a cleaner to clean the house and that's where the cleaning fee goes. You don't get the... So she ended up not booking, or so I thought. But I guess what happened, because she was like, it's too expensive, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, that fair enough. Sorry, it didn't work out. It's not worth it for us to rent out our house for less because it's so much effort and it's just not worth it to like, I'd rather be in our house than rent it out for cheaper. So then 5 days before this weekend, on like the Tuesday or Monday, so maybe not even 5 days, I got a random call, and I answered it, and it's like, hi, it's blah, blah, blah. I'm coming this weekend, and I actually messaged you previously about like doing an extra deep clean. And I was like, oh, I had no idea that you booked, because she booked like separately from the thread that we had started. So I would have never connected that, because why would I? It only gives you limited info. And she was like just reiterating that she wanted the deep clean. And I was kind of like, oh, fuck. Like, we have 3 bookings this weekend. We had Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. So I had to go in, and like one of them we had the cleaner do, and one of them I went in and was going to do, which was this one, because I was like, okay, well, I have to do this. Like, our cleaner's not going to do some intense deep clean. So we ended up coming back from London, not early, but we probably would have stayed a little bit later, because you and I were in London for the weekend. And I did this intense deep clean. Like, normally I vacuum, and we have a really good Dyson vacuum that I'm obsessed with. And it like shows you all the dirt on the floor with this like UV ray light. So it's really thorough. And I obviously dust everything and wash everything. But at the end of the day, it's a house that we live in. Airbnbs, unless they're like new builds that are only for rentals, you end up a lot of the time in houses and places that are unique and different, but they're not like...
Even then, you get some wear and tear, wouldn't you? It's not like it was built yesterday.
Exactly. So anyway, this woman seemed fine. She seemed super friendly. And so when she called me and said, oh yeah, blah, 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 like I wanted the deep clean. And so I went over what I'll do. And it's not like I said, I will dust every dish for you. And I said, I'll mop the floors, which I normally don't do in addition to the vacuuming every time. Like, I'll vacuum all the couches. And I did. I felt, I guess she said that she had a long COVID. And so she was really worried about getting sick. And her daughter had a dog allergy. But I think the bigger issue was the long COVID, not even the dog allergy. So anyway, I spent so long cleaning to make sure that, because I would have felt really bad if she did get something, even though it's insane to me. Like, you're not going to get like, I cleaned the house well anyway, so you're not going to get COVID from touching like the fucking light switch. But I still went and washed everything. Anyway, then when I came back on Monday at checkout time, because I needed to get in because I had a meeting that I needed to take, they were like 45 minutes late checking out. So annoying, but also whatever. So I was already irritated because 15 to 20 minutes grace period, fine. But when you're getting to closer to an hour, that's just rude.
Just leisurely leaving as well. Not like rushing around because there was a kid going crazy. Just chilling out, leaving late. Yeah.
And so that was irritating. So then yesterday I'm on a call and I suddenly see like 20 Airbnb notifications come through. And I'm like, okay. Like, I knew, first of all, I thought I would get an amazing review from this lady because I'd gone so above and beyond. And by the way, my Airbnb, I'm going to call it my Airbnb listing because I do all the work. I have only 5-star reviews because I clean really well. It's always as people expect. Like, the photos are accurate. Like, if there's any issue, I communicate it in advance. But yeah, she sent me like 15 photos of all this stuff that apparently went wrong, and she wanted her money refunded.
Yeah.
It's like the TV, the
TV wasn't plugged in.
The second TV upstairs wasn't plugged in. And she's like, so my son was expecting to play his Nintendo Switch all weekend and he wasn't able to. And I'm like, you could have messaged me and I would have explained that you just have to plug it in.
You don't even have to.
Like,
why does that need to be explained anyway?
And what else? There was like a photo of a dish with one crumb in it.
Yeah, literally like a speck of a crumb.
And I'm like, yes, some like people put things away and sometimes they're just clean it again. Just clean. She's like, we spent hours cleaning. She sent me like a picture of the toilet and there's like discoloration because I don't know, it's the same toilets as when we bought the house. They're fine and they're pretty modern, but there is some discoloration. And I'm like, lady, that's clean.
Yeah.
It's just not a brand new toilet off the shelf. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It was just insane. And so she wants all her money back. And it's really tough because I have pure 5-star reviews. I have like 25 reviews at this point, and I haven't even gotten 1 4-star. So I have this perfect 5-star listing, and now I'm probably going to get 1 star from her, but I'm not refunding her money. Like, is she fucking insane? I'm like, if you message me that day sorry, this is such a tangent. I don't know. But I'm like, if you messaged me that day, I would have been like, okay, fine, leave. I'll refund you and we'll come home. Like, I don't
it was
care.
actually an awkward day for us to be out of the house as well, wasn't it? If she wasn't happy, go away.
I know.
But they still stayed as well. That's one thing.
They still stayed. They checked
so
out
it was
late.
obviously clear enough for them to stay the night.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy, some of the stuff that she was picking up.
Yeah, it was insane. So I've never had anything like that. I think this lady was a little bit actually insane because thinking back, somebody who like calls in advance for a deep clean because they're scared of long COVID, like, I'm like, don't stay at an Airbnb. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
what are you? She was worried because somebody had booked the night before. You can't just expect me to block out all my nights. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it was so crazy.
She probably won't even figure out how to review.
She probably will. She figured out how to send me 100 photos. So, but
Yeah, whatever.
it is what it is. I've accepted that I'm gonna get a 1-star review, and I don't even care.
You should just think about if she gives a bad review, just the response. Just be like, "You're crazy, lady.
Yeah,
Your requests were insane. Look at my other reviews."
yeah. I mean,
Because she's gone now. Like, she's had her experience.
yeah,
It's just other bookings who are going to look at our reviews and they'll see 25 good ones and one crazy person. So it's just how you respond to that.
yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. So another doc we watched was the Amber Heard Johnny Depp doc.
This is the documentary episode.
No,
We also watched the Jinx follow-up. That was good.
Matthew, okay,
Well, the
we're-
original Jinx was better, I'd say.
we're done with docs after this.
Okay.
I don't think the Jinx follow-up was that good, by the way.
No, but the original was. If you haven't seen that, watch the Jinx.
So we're watching this Amber Heard Johnny Depp doc, and I wouldn't say this is like some 5-star documentary. I think it's probably interesting if you didn't follow the trial at the time. Did you follow the trial?
Yeah, only because you told me about it. I think I wasn't interested at all to start with, but you were like watching every day.
I don't know why I was so obsessed with this. It's kind of embarrassing.
It's crazy that the trial is just shown live in America as well.
Well, that was part of his strategy, is that he wanted it.
He chose a state where it could be televised.
Which I think was smart if he's like, because sometimes something gets out into the culture and you can't change it unless you do something drastic. So I think
Yeah.
what he did was smart. But we were watching, so I followed it at the time and I was so like, Amber Heard is fucked. I love Johnny Depp. Fuck you, Amber Heard.
Which was the whole population as well.
I got so swept up in that. But now watching the doc, it shows you side by side kind of their response to a situation. First Johnny Depp, then Amber Heard. Because while the trial actually unfolded, it was Johnny's perspective and then a couple other witnesses. And then you'd hear Amber way later or something. So the timeline wasn't side by side. Here's my side, here's your side.
Right.
So, but in the doc, they put it side by side. And I found it so interesting because it's just more clear when they do it that way that these are two people who obviously struggled
Yeah.
in different ways. Like Johnny Depp obviously has addiction issues and Amber Heard obviously has
Crazy issues.
whatever, I don't know what happened in her background, but like she's got some stuff she's dealing with. I wouldn't put it past myself if, like, back to the Gone Girl thing, if you really fucked me over, I might shit on your bed.
I thought that was the dog. Wasn't that her defense?
Well, that was the back and forth, but,
Yeah, the trial was just funny though, because all I watched was like the TikTok memes that you were showing me.
Yeah.
And that one, and they asked Johnny Depp, like, was it the dog? was it the dog that did it? And he's like, they're teacup chihuahuas. That was clearly a human poo.
I know. But to be fair, it's pretty clear what's a human poo and what's a dog poo. Like,
Especially if it's a tiny little dog.
we don't have big dogs, but we have like small, medium dogs, and I would never mistake Winnie's poo for my poo or your poo.
Well, you probably haven't looked that much, but I think you're right. I think you could tell the difference.
Anyway, this isn't to put more hate Amber Heard's way. More so, my point was they both were clearly kind of fucked up and having issues, and it kind of sucks that we get into this mindset of you're a villain and you're not, because it's not that way at all. Like, I think one person might have gone a bit further than the other.
So I wasn't even really listening to you there. I was just thinking about the mega pint.
A mega pint.
Well, that's half the humor in it was Amber Heard's like lawyers just weren't as good as Johnny Depp's, and they were quite funny halfway through, and when they were.
I think it also shows just like how, I don't know, he has such comedic timing.
Yeah. Well, they were both freaking acting on the stand, weren't they?
Yeah, but in
the
different ways. Like Johnny Depp was more like sincere and comedic.
Yeah, he was just like quiet and a bit solemn and considered, and
Amber Heard was like really
dramatic.
And it might have been real, but I don't know. For some reason, when I watch it, it seems fake. I don't know why.
I suppose you know she's an actor as well.
Maybe. But anyway, this is not even my point. My point is more like we shouldn't villainize either of them. And I feel bad for what she's probably gone through since and for what he went through.
But my point is...
It is entertaining.
When Amber's counsel were examining... Those are the right words, aren't they? We're examining... Yeah. No, we weren't examining.
Yeah.
Anyway,
cross-examining.
Was it cross-examination? Or anyway, Johnny Depp, they were talking about his alcohol issues and that he had a drink in the morning. And he said, and he went, "Isn't it true, Mr. Depp, you poured yourself a mega pint of wine?" And Johnny was like, "A mega pint?
Yeah.
What's a mega pint?
I know.
I had a glass of wine."
I know. You literally just said this 5 minutes ago. Do you remember? Do you forget?
I didn't finish my story.
Okay. I know, it's so funny. I actually am excited to keep watching that tonight.
Do you remember the guy concierge, and they were talking about some of the fights that they'd had, and this concierge was in his car like sipping on a Coke and vaping.
Oh yeah.
And Amber's counsel like asking about it. I was like, "I'm so bored of all this. It was so long ago. I don't care, man. We've all got issues in our life." And it's just like sipping on his Coke and vaping.
It's fucking true though. Exactly. It's real people living their lives, and we're arguing about like who pooped on the bed kind of thing. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So anyway, I remembered one thing from before. So I got a comment. First of all, let me thank our patrons.
God, we are all over the place.
Sorry. Let me just interject here and thank our patrons. We've gotten a couple new patrons today. I think because we put out a new episode, you and me, about our fertility journey. And we get more into the gory details on Patreon. So obviously that's enticed people. I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much to patrons. Because, it takes a lot of time to do this podcast, and I like doing it, but there is a point where you want to see some kind of money from it. So, I really appreciate people who do go and subscribe on our Patreon. And also, don't forget to leave comments. So I mentioned that guy who kind of hates me, but obviously wants to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't even delete his comments because I want the engagement on our Instagram.
Yeah.
Because this is a little social media 101 right here from somebody who works in communications. But when you post content, so on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, LinkedIn, the social media apps prioritize content that's getting engagement. So likes are okay. Let's call that like 1 point. But if you get comments, if people save your post, if you send it somewhere, that engagement points like really rack up, and then they'll prioritize your content. So that's why I don't delete his comments, because I'm like, well, I need the engagement points, so I'll keep that there.
That's why I like and comment everything you post.
But so stuff like that just means a lot to us. So if you're supporting us on Instagram, if you like the podcast, if you're reviewing the podcast, if you're rating it, all this stuff just means that, it's more likely that we can make this something that actually pays some bills, and then it's fun. And
we'll pay a guest. We could pay a guest.
What do you mean pay a guest?
Could get a guest on.
You don't pay a guest to come on.
You don't pay guests. Why do they do it then? To promote
For
something
promotion,
themselves?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do it.
Apologies for Matthew.
I'd want to be paid.
If you wanted to promote something, that's how you go do it on. Anyway, so that's that little spiel done. I got a comment though over text from someone, and because they listened to our last episode about how we met, and she was like, "Wow, Matthew is so charming. The girls must just be flocking to Matthew."
Oh my God.
They're like, he is so easy breezy. Easy breezy. I'm like...
Really get my tires pumped up on this podcast, don't I?
I know. I was like, wow, I've never heard that, but he'll love that.
That's nice.
Anyway.
Why are we talking about these documentaries and why Amber Heard was misunderstood?
And this is kind of relating it back to why we're doing this podcast and like just talking about topics that come up when you're in your 30s. When I watched that Amber Heard Johnny Depp doc, it kind of brings up these themes that I've seen come up more. Okay, is this boring you?
I'm ready for my second coffee.
It kind of brings up themes that I've just had come up more for me, especially in the last few years. I think just the idea that people aren't evil or good. I think it took me a long time to just kind of realize that there's so much nuance in that.
Like you don't know their background or what's going on with them.
You don't know why some
you see
people...
what you see and not all the context.
Yeah, you don't know why some people are the way they are. And yeah, it's just something that I've like really come to terms with the last, I don't know, maybe 4 years or something. I don't know. I guess I could talk a bit about some of my background. I think people close to me know stuff about me, but I never really talk about it just because it feels a bit like self-indulgent or something. People think I'm trying to make them feel bad for me if I talk about some of the stuff in my life, and I don't want them to think that, so then I don't talk about it.
I wouldn't think that.
Well, so why this like resonates with me so much is my dad was really troubled, I guess, and a lot of my life I saw him as a villain only until basically he passed away, spoiler alert, and I realized his whole life was, obviously he did really bad things, but he was also just one big sad story and one big example of like generational trauma and real, trauma in his life.
Do you want to share more about what happened or not?
It's not like some big secret. It's like I said, it's just, I don't talk about that much. Basically, he grew up as a First Nations man, a bunch of generational trauma there, just in that First Nations people were so oppressed in Canada and often alcoholics. That is like biological if you have First Nations kind of in you. And yeah, living on the reserve, which, there's less access to basic things like clean drinking water and all the things. So there's just a baseline of you don't have as good of a quality of a life if you are born First Nations. Basically and this is just my understanding of the story. I don't blame anyone, and I'm just telling it from my kind of perspective, obviously, but he was doing really well and then at school and kind of that kind of thing. And he was really into wrestling. So his coach actually wanted him to live with him because he was such a good wrestler and he wanted to kind of protect him from...
To take him off the reserve, he wanted to live with him.
Not so much I think just out of his situation at home.
Yeah, right. So it must have been visible to others he had a bad home life.
I don't really know what was happening. I do know that he had some stepdads that didn't like him and they were kicking him out and sending him to the military before he could graduate high school. And so I think that's part of why his coach wanted to like take him in so that he could finish and kind of fulfill his potential, because he saw a lot of potential in him. Like he was getting straight A's. My dad was always apparently super academic, deep thinker more so. Like even at the end of his life, he read so much, like read Russian authors and all these kind of, The Hobbit was his favorite book. Like he just read, he read a lot, and the classics and that kind of stuff.
Maybe that's where you get that from then.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. I do think that. But he basically didn't do that and he went into the military. I think that's where he kind of started to get some issues with alcohol. I think a lot of people do.
In the military?
Yeah, because it's just a huge drinking culture in the military.
Oh, wow.
And you see certain things and it makes you...
And you didn't understand lots of that when you were a kid?
Well, definitely not.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just saying that's what you're saying about Amber Heard. You only see what you see. You don't know what's gone in people's backgrounds.
Obviously, I'm sure his parents had generational trauma. Like, I am First Nations. I have like a status card, which gives you official Indian status in Canada. But I only got that because my great-great-grandma got her official status taken away because she married a white man. If you were a First Nations man and married a white woman, that wouldn't have happened to you. So it was like reparations for what happened then. So there was this short window of time when I was growing up, really when I was really young, like 2, when they said, okay, we're going to give reparations for what we did then. And so then that's how my sister and I got First Nation status. But anyway... So it just kind of goes to show, like, it seems like, oh, that was so long ago, but no, all this stuff that was happening in Canada, residential schools were still happening, in the 1990s.
Well, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's not that long ago. And
it's not that old of a country, is it?
If you don't know, residential schools are where they sent First Nations children to basically be assimilated into Canadian culture. A lot of sexual abuse, mass grave sites, mysterious deaths, a lot. Horrible places. Anyway, I only probably know the surface of what he went through growing up, but he basically went to the military, and then I think he met my mom when they were still in high school. Then he went off and came back, and they had me, and they had me quite young, and then my sister a couple years later. And he always had some kind of mental issues going on, apparently. And what I can remember is that he would kind of show up with, I remember once he showed up with like a yellow Hummer.
Yeah.
And he would randomly have these like jet skis.
Just go and buy something really expensive and turn up with it.
Yeah.
And your mum's like, what the hell?
Exactly.
We can't afford this.
Exactly. And so that part was really fun. But then he also was violent. And so I remember a lot of that too. So I remember both sides. So it's very mixed messages. And I think he struggled, my mom thinks too, like he struggled with bipolar. But we don't really know for sure. But yeah, at the same time, he was like a really good carpenter too. So he built the house that we grew up in.
That's
so, like,
crazy.
really nice house. He was really good at that. But yeah, apparently he also started a couple different businesses that he maybe didn't like follow through totally on. And I do see elements of that in myself. Kind of a bit of maybe ADHD or something. It's hard to know, like, I don't know what he ever got diagnosed with, but it was probably incorrect, and I'll get into that. But
I wonder if the spontaneous purchases come through as well.
I don't show up with a Hummer.
No, caravan.
Dog. That we discussed and agreed. You were fully in on these purchases. Yeah. But yeah, I am very an idea, and I have to do it like today.
Yeah, I guess you run it by me is the difference.
I run it by you, and I look at our finances and whatever, but I am very spontaneous. But I think a lot of people are like that.
I don't think so. I don't think many people are that spontaneous.
Basically, eventually they get divorced. He kind of gets to a point where through that process, he's getting more like dangerous and violent. Like I remember, I won't go into all the gory detail, but yeah, it's that kind of stuff. And then he would also be really like erratic. So he would like show up outside the back door, and you would just like see him outside the back. So like really erratic, kind of crazy stuff. It wasn't just violence. It was like mental illness.
Yeah. And you're still quite young at this time.
I was quite young, but I remember some things. So they got divorced, and he went to the States, I think. And I was like 5 or 6 at this point. And basically, I think we kept in contact a little bit. Like he would come visit. I have some memories of that. And again, I think we meant a lot. I know that we meant a lot to him, like my sister and I. And he would get us these big presents and blah, blah, blah. I was super young still at this point. So but I even remember like one time he got me this big box of different stuff. And apparently he was super, super fashionable. So he would dress me super fashionable growing up. And I think why I reflect on this a lot now is because obviously Violet's only 2, but the last 2 years have probably been the most monumental of my entire life. And so I can imagine spending, having 2 kids and spending the first 5 years with one and the first 3 years with the other. Like to us, we're like, you were only there for that time. To him, that must have felt like a long time and super important.
Yeah.
But anyway, fast forward to when I'm like 8, I think, I basically learned that he's been put in jail for, I don't know, under a decade, but he's been put in jail for manslaughter. So he drunk driving, I think, killed someone. And at that point, I remember like crying about it and being so upset because I was in my head, which I was so young, but I was just like, if you are in jail and you've done that, you're a villain. Like you are a bad guy. And end of story. That's that. So at that point, that was like the decline of any contact with him. Like he would call from jail every once in a while, but I would just... I just remember those conversations. Like I eventually was just like one word answering him, and then I wouldn't take the call.
Yeah, which must have been hard for him.
Yeah, it makes me really like sad to think about that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, in my head, I was just like, you're a villain. I'm done with you.
Well, yeah, you're not at an age to process that properly, are you?
Yeah. So eventually he gets out of jail. I don't think I really heard from him like in my teens. I think maybe he just stopped trying to talk to me. I know that him and my sister kept in touch on and off, but I think his mental illness got worse and worse. And then he also got some injuries, like from car accidents and motorcycle accidents. So his leg, I think he had a pretty bad limp and like chronic pain as well. Anyway, so he eventually ended up back on Vancouver Island. And yeah, he had all these issues. And back to the First Nations thing, like healthcare, not great. So if you have bipolar, you have chronic pain, he was just put on heavy lithium, which if you have bipolar, it's like a careful cocktail of measuring your brain activity and giving you super tailored medicine for that. It's not like, here's a blanket drug. It's like, let's give this and test it for a few days and see how you react. And it really dulls you down. I didn't really hear from him again much. Like, I basically just accepted like, you're cut out. And I think that's how I used to deal with things is I just need to focus on myself and I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
So in 2016, he ended up dying by suicide. And God, this is like such a heavy episode. And I learned afterwards, so he was 49 when he
Yeah,
died.
so young.
And I learned afterwards that yeah, he basically lived in like this shack he had put together on the reserve.
Yeah.
Because if you do, I don't know if it's the same for all nations, First Nations, but you can have access to like a piece of land on the reserve. So he obviously got access to a piece of land.
For free?
Yeah. And he just like dragged a bunch of scrap wood there because his leg was so messed up at that point that he had like a bicycle and a wagon. And so he would like get stuff there. Like he was so poor.
God.
And yeah. But it's actually amazing what he built. Like he was a really good carpenter. He built like a house out of like scrap wood. It was kind of crazy. All over the house were like letters from us from when we were like 7, 6 that we had sent to him. Really, really sad. So at that time I kind of I went to the funeral, but I didn't really process it until in the last few years. I think especially since having Violet, like I think I just see how, first of all, I see him from a different perspective. I've learned a couple more things that I didn't know before. And yeah, I'm more so like, wow, you had a traumatic life. You come from generational trauma and you had mental illness and you had no support. You got given this blanket lithium. And apparently the day that he did commit suicide or days leading up to it, he was trying to cold turkey go off of it, which is really, really bad. And he was having like really trying to do crazy erratic things. And yeah, so it's just like really, really sad. And so now when I look back at that from the perspective of having my own kid, I can't imagine life without her in it.
Yeah, it's so different when you get older because you understand more about what it would be like to have that like mental state and the context and the support you need, and you can almost put yourself in his shoes much better than you could when you were younger. And then having been the parent just changes the dynamic so much because you've only ever seen him as somebody who like should have their shit together and should be doing all these things, and you're a failure if you don't. But then you can put yourself in his position as a parent as well, and how so much that story would have been difficult for him when it relates to you guys. It
just has made me kind of back to this villain thing, like just realize that obviously there are some people that do really fucked up shit, but like my dad, to someone, he killed their daughter.
Yeah.
Everyone has this like backstory and everyone is dealing with so many different things, and yeah, it just changed my perspective a bit on life. Not instantly, like again, I probably didn't really process it until the last few years and now I'm more just feel bad. I wish that he waited until I was, now would be perfect if he, and I think I actually could have helped him, but I wasn't in that place to do so. I probably wouldn't have helped him, and that's why this is something that I've kind of learned from, is to be more compassionate to people's situations, to not be such a closed book to people, and to just be more compassionate. Really, you never know the impact you can make. I think if he knew me now, I could have saved him, but he didn't, so I didn't, kind of thing.
It's so sad.
Yeah. And it also just makes me think a lot about, I think it's what's kind of instilled in me, just like the shortness of life and why every day is to be lived to the fullest. For me, your kids are the most important thing that could ever impact you. So it's also just nailed that in. That is a story where things went awry and he lost relationships with his children. And in my life, I'm always going to make sure that my priorities are straight. Violet is always going to be number one, and our future 4 kids will be number 1.
Number 1 to 5 in some kind of order.
Well, no, all at number 1. And that's also what played into not drinking for me. Like, I don't want to live a life struggling with something that takes away from what my true priorities are.
Yeah.
And, when I feel like I've been on my phone a lot, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, this TikTok isn't going to be important in 10 years' time, but being with my 2-year-old, it's such limited time, isn't it?
Yeah, I do honestly think that. I'm like, why the fuck am I on TikTok right now? If I died tomorrow, would I wish that the last 24 hours were spent on TikTok or with my 2-year-old?
I had a similar thought like this morning. So we're trying to get the laundry done for Airbnb at the weekend, and like I'm trying to run around and do it, and she's like, Daddy, sit down. She wants me to sit in this bucket so that she can like put her baby's hat on. And I got her up to go and do the laundry, and then she went, no, Daddy, sit down. I was like, okay, yeah, I've got like an hour with you before we drop you off for daycare. I'm just going to spend this with you. The laundry can wait.
I totally agree, because I feel like my time with her is so limited now. I think because she's happier, she's really happy to go to nursery or to go hang out with your parents for the day. And in my evenings and a lot of my early mornings, I'm working on the podcast. And so...
You're not going to remember that the one bit of editing you did this morning, or the pillowcases I managed to put on the bed. Like, who cares about that? But the time you spend with your kids is what you're going to remember.
I know, and it's what actually makes me happier. Like, the reality is sometimes she can be insane in that last hour of the day.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks because I feel like the morning hour is a good hour with her because she's just woken up and she's cute and whatever. The last hour of the day, she's sometimes a little insane terror.
Yeah, but sometimes those are the only 2 hours we get with her. She's at daycare.
I know.
And just because we've had a stressful day and you want her to just be nice and cuddly and cute, but she wants to be a little terror, but you've still got a bunch of stuff that you feel needs doing. The
biggest hack I found for that last hour of the day is to just get in the bath with her. Because then it's weird. I guess it's different and it's fun for her. And then we're just chilling there having quality time in the bath. She's still breastfeeds, so she's like... you call her, what do you compare her to on Game of Thrones?
Oh, what, little Lord Aaron who's like 7 breastfeeding? Yeah. That's going to be violent, man. You're going to have to cut the cord.
So, yeah, I've got my little Lord Aaron in the bath breastfeeding. And
she's so big now as well.
I know. So, I don't know. I guess all that to say, I think that also is why I'm so into my... self-growth and self-care, because I have a lot of things that I deal with that I don't really talk about. Again, not because I'm trying to be closed off. I'm the kind of person that I want to come off as strong and independent and I can do everything.
Yeah.
In this podcast, I don't want to pretend. And when I listen to other people's podcasts, I way more prefer them to be real and give more clarity on who they are and explain the real, struggles, because that's more relatable.
Yeah.
So, that's just kind of part of my background. I think also another thing I see is how vital it is that Violet has you and me. I grew up and I only had my mom, and obviously she did, the best she can and a good job and everything. But the one person will never make up for 2 people. And they say that little girls get their confidence from their dads and how their dads treat them. And so, I had some mixed experiences, and they're very, even in those early years, they were very confusing. Like, some of them were not great. Some of them weren't acceptable, really. But it sometimes makes me so emotional to see how much Violet loves you. And obviously she needs me, and we have a connection, but the connection that you and her have is so insane to see. And it's so different. And I just can't imagine a world where like
there's only, took that away.
You took away half of these super important people in your life. It's just, I think this is just another thing that I'm like, wow. Like, you kind of, growing up, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm fine. I don't even notice that I didn't have a dad. Yeah. And that's true. That must have had a big impact because I see how important you are to her.
I know. It does make you think about things so differently because, like, can you imagine if I just wasn't here? If I just left? Or if I died tomorrow? Like, the impact it would have on her. It's like, when you see things on TV now, like, what are we watching? And they killed the little boy who's like 4 or something. It's like so
House
traumatic. As soon as you have a kid,
oh my god,
it's so traumatic. Anything that happens to babies, and I guess like my experiences of like losing people isn't as, I don't know, as traumatic as yours, but it is in a different way. So my granddad died just like completely suddenly of a heart attack when he was 57, I think, and that's like nobody saw it coming. I can't remember. Was he smoking at the time or he used to smoke or anything? But anyway, lots of people did that, and he just was here one day, wasn't the next. Yeah. And like that could happen to me. I think that's part of the reason we try to be so healthy to avoid some of that stuff. Like right now, you obviously want to be around and present and as active and involved as you can be for your kids when they're young. But equally, when you're 70, 80 and you want to be healthy then, and your actions now and how you live your life fends off heart disease and diabetes and dementia and all those things that hit you later in life. Your diet and your health and your exercise now is almost a precursor to that. So I think that it just reinforces why we're trying to live a certain way.
Because I had a great grandma, my grandpa's mom. She smoked a pack a day her whole life, lived till like 95.
She smoked a pack a day, not a whole life.
Yeah.
No, she did. When I knew her.
You never knew her, Matthew. She died when I was 7.
Hang on, who are you talking about?
My great-grandma.
Oh, great-grandma, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought your grandma.
No.
Grandma was just like having a pack a day.
Yeah.
In secret from me.
So it can go either way, but that is a lot of the reason we do the things we do. We read Peter Attia's book, Outlive, and there was some really good, it's all about living longer and having good quality of life at the end of your life.
Well, it's not about living longer, it's about extending your health span, so being healthy when you're in your 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, rather than just a really gradual decline. You can't do much.
Yeah. And my grandparents actually were a really good example of that, because my grandpa's 85 and goes to the gym 3 times a week, still golfs. He's got some issues popping up here and there, but he's, doing great. And is still very with it. And my grandma passed away from cancer 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now. But that one was weird too, because we basically found out she had terminal cancer, 2 years before that. And it was also right through COVID. So this was such a touchy time for me, because she couldn't see anyone, because if she got COVID, she would die. Because she was so, with all the radiation and everything. And when people would kind of say, I'm not going to get the vaccine, they were kind of like anti-COVID, like COVID's a hoax, like all that kind of stuff. It felt really, really deeply personal, because my grandma, who I would say is the most important person in my entire life, I had a lot of like shit happen, and she was just the best, basically. Yeah.
It was almost like an attack on her. They're saying they don't care about her. If
Not an attack on her, but
you're putting her at risk.
Stuff like this that means that I can't see my grandma and she's dying, and it just sucks. Like, if we all just fucking did what we were supposed to and didn't make this some political thing, like if we just took the fucking, then people could go out again and I could see my grandma and there wouldn't be all these new strains running around. That's how I felt. Like, I don't know if that science is totally spot on, but that's how I felt. And so that was another time where this theme of like villains, I was just super sensitive and touchy about it.
Yeah, it's been selfish.
And since then, I think whatever, bro, like, you do you, I'll do me. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into any political debates with people anymore. Same thing, like, have compassion for people where they're coming from. Hopefully people, gave me that same compassion. knowing that I was coming from a place of it felt like life or death because it was for people in my life. And I know a lot of people were in that situation. But yeah, so it was a weird one. We're told she had like a couple weeks, and then it turned into like 2 years. I'd experienced my dad's death and all the kind of regrets I had around that. And I feeling like I could have done more. And then this happened with my grandma. And it's like I'd learned from that. And it was COVID, but I got on a plane and went back home and did everything I could to spend like as much time with her. And I did that over the 2 years. Like I went home lots and lots, and it wasn't great because we had to be distanced. I had to wear a mask sometimes, but it was the best that I could do. And the thing with cancer is you get time to say goodbye. So I like sent her this big email kind of the week before she died, just being super clear about all the ways that she impacted my life. Because I don't think she even could receive that, because she'll never know kind of how major she was, but maybe in her heart of hearts she did. But I feel like I couldn't have communicated more how much she meant to me. And even before that time, like, it's not like just at the end you spend all the time with them. It's our whole lives. I had been going to her house on the weekend, and even in university when I'm an adult. I remember when I was moving to the UK, she's one of the first ones I called. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, I think that's good for you. Like, I think that'll be fun. Like, any big thing, I just felt like I had to tell my grandma first. Like, even when I like broke up with my boyfriend, my long-term boyfriend, that they all really liked, and obviously they like you more, but like, but I was like, so breaking up with blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, okay. Like, I don't know, for some reason, she was always on my side. You start losing people when you get into your 30s. If you're lucky, even later. And if you're unlucky, it's even earlier. But for me, it's been, the last decade is when I've been started losing people. And it's it makes you kind of start to have, I don't know if midlife crisis is the right word, but you're like, holy shit, life is short. I don't want to waste any time. Yeah,
it does make you act differently. I think one of the nicer things about your grandma passing away was you had no regrets. I think the one regret you say was you really wish you could have gone to meet Violet, which you had no control over. But everything that the two of you had control over, like she told you so much about her life and what it was like growing up and all the places she lived and all the people she interacted with. You knew lots about her. You made her aware of how important she was. It wasn't this big rush at the end where you had a couple of weeks to get all your emotions and conversations in. And that's something I've tried to take on as well. Because I remember you asked me, you were like, what does your grandparents do for work? I was like, I have no idea. I've never asked them what they did.
That's insane.
And you were like, that's crazy to me. You know, all the jobs she's had and where they were and what it was like and her progression and stuff. And I asked, so my family just don't talk about that kind of stuff as much as yours do. But I did make a point to go and ask them all what jobs they did and what house they lived in. And so I started to do some of that, and I want to sort of maintain that and do that to my parents now as well, because we only have surface level conversations sometimes. You talk about the here and now and what's going on in sporting world or on TV or something that's not that important. When you're on your deathbed, you want to remember what it was like to be them and to experience their life as well. Yeah. So my grandma had a sort of slow decline as well, but I made a point of asking a lot of questions over the last few years since I met you, really. I think the one thing I do regret is not writing more stuff down, because my memory is terrible and I remember some things, but there was actually lots of like drama and interesting things went on in her side of the family. And you forget that like people our age, our grandparents were probably the last people that had some kind of interaction with World War II. Yeah. Like they were 10 plus probably. So like my other grandpa got evacuated, and he always talks about what it was like with his brother being in the line to be picked by families and going out to the countryside. So if you don't ask them about this kind of stuff, then it just disappears forever. Yeah. So I think I try to ask more questions, and I want to start writing things down for me, but then also you want to document some stuff about our life for Violet and her grandkids. At some point we'll be the grandparents, and although we have social media and videos and pictures to document stuff, you don't get the story behind that as much and the emotions and how you were feeling. So I want to make an effort. I keep saying I want to start journaling more, but I want to document our lives as well.
I think maybe you should start journaling in the evening, because that would be kind of nice, and that could be a nice bedtime routine, like go into bed 20 minutes early, do 15 minutes of journaling, maybe read for 10 minutes, then go to bed.
Yeah, I need to find, because it's not work. I'm not doing it in the morning. And at the minute, our evening routine is just too comfortable. We just like eat dinner, watch TV, and fall asleep. I
know, it is nice. But I do feel really connected with some higher power I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I feel like that's a common thing people say now. But like they're out there kind of watching, and I don't know about protecting me, but trying to guide me in some way. And so my dad was, like I said, he was really into sports. He was really like jacked and muscular, and he was a wrestler and all these things. And he was like a scary human being, apparently, to the police knew him. He was known. He was known as like a scary fighter guy.
Oh my God.
And he would fight a lot of guys.
God, I wonder what he would have thought of me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're very different. It's kind of funny because my sister and I always wonder how I've never dated someone like, abusive isn't even in my category of words. Yeah. Like I've always dated people with like steady head.
You've never gone for the bad guy.
Nice guys, solid jobs, some steady
like
boys.
The opposite of your dad, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Wasn't he shorter too?
He was shorter, yeah, like 5'8" or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm like taller than both my parents. I don't know where that came from. I do try to connect to that spiritual side, and I know that there's people that have passed in my life that I want to stay connected to, and because he was that like sporty, really intense gym going person, I kind of like, if I'm doing something hard in my life, I can kind of like connect.
And you feel like you tap into his energy or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then same with my grandma. Like I didn't even tell you this, but when we were camping the other weekend and I went for that late night hike.
Yep.
I got to the top of the hill and it was really pretty because dusk is such a pretty time. Like it was like 9:30 or something. It was quite late, but because it gets late, it stays light so late, it was only just kind of starting to get dark. And there was just purple flowers like everywhere, like heather and purple snapdragons and all these purple flowers. And I think my grandma, one of her daughters is named Heather, but for some reason, her favorite color was blue, but she really liked purples and stuff like that. And I don't know, for some reason I just thought of her and like I felt her energy with like all these purple flowers. And so then I like picked this bouquet of purple flowers and I was like talking to it like it was my grandma, or not talking to it, but I was talking out loud as if my grandma was there, because I could just feel. And then I like put it down somewhere that I thought she would like. And I was like, so like I do little like things and like try to connect. And I think that's kind of nice. And I do believe that's true. There's like some energies still around at times, and it's just how much you tap into it.
Yeah, that's really sweet. So even like a favorite color. I'm like, I could probably Blue. Guess at my parents' favorite color.
That's crazy. For some reason, what's your favorite color was like the top question growing up. It's like, hold on, so what's your favorite color now?
Well, okay. Maybe see that's kind of the relationship. This is why you are so inquisitive. So as a grandma, she was probably saying to you as a kid, like, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
Like, I'd ask, but then you would ask your grandma back, like, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
And you'd remember it. Like, I've probably asked my parents what their favorite color was in my life, but I don't remember it.
That's so wild. Yeah, I know everyone in my family's favorite color.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if you just retain information better than I do. Well, you're definitely more inquisitive.
No, it was just like a thing to know. What's your favorite color? Blue?
Probably.
The thing is, I don't feel like you have a strong opinion on it.
True. I don't want to hang my hat to
What's
something.
my favorite color?
Green.
Yeah. What's Violet's favorite color?
Pink.
Yeah, but she says it's yellow. Yellow.
No, actually, she said it's rainbow. I thought that's the smartest answer I've ever heard.
She says a lot of things. All right, we got to wrap this shit up.
Okay. So this is the death episode.
It's not the death. I think it's like the reflecting on life, learning a bit more about us, and life is short, and that becomes clear in your 30s, and you got to keep it tight if you want to be agile and sharp when you're in your 80s.
Yeah, I really want to wrestle you right now.
What the fuck?
Should we wrestle?
What are you talking about?
Your dad being a wrestler.
You just want to see who would win?
Yeah.
What? How would you qualify like winning? Like how would I? Is it like if I pin you down for 3 seconds or something?
Well, a 3 count, yeah. Or you can get disqualified, or you can submit.
Okay. All right. Okay. Goodbye.
Or we could have a tables, ladder, and chairs match.
Okay, Matthew.
Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.